What's next doesn't happen by accident. It doesn't happen by chance. What's next happens when experience meets expertise, when data meets dollars, and when steel meets earth. What's next happens when the promising work of Pioneer's state-of-the-art research centers meets the unsparing challenges of more than 17,000 on-farm trials. Our ultimate goal is to bring the next seed breakthrough to your fields, because Pioneer isn't just our name, it's our mission. Pioneer. What's next happens here.
This RealAg Radio podcast is brought to you by Authority Strike Herbicide from FMC. One application of Authority Strike Herbicide delivers a powerful one-pass burn-off to start, followed by extended weed control later. See your local retailer today for more information.
It's time for RealAg Radio on Rural Radio Channel 147 on Sirius XM. RealAg Radio and RealAgriculture.com is your home for insight and analysis of the issues that are impacting your farm business. Let's get real and get connected with RealAg Radio. Welcome to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM. Shaun Haney, your host here on this Thursday edition of the show. Hey, thanks so much for making RealAg Radio and Rural Radio 147 a big part of your workday. Also, a big shout out to everybody listening out there on the RealAg Radio podcast, whether you're in Canada, the U.S., or beyond the shores of North America. It is great to have you here today on the program. Okay, it is the Farmer Rapid Fire, of course, because it is Thursday, and we got a lot to discuss. It is brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada. For more than 90 years, Pioneer has developed and tested products to meet your local challenges. With new Optimum Glide canola, Enlist E3 soybeans, to performing corn products and industry-leading traits and technologies to maximize your yield potential, Pioneer's on-the-ground teams can help you get the right products for your fields. Visit pioneer.com/Canada to learn more. Today's lineup of farmers is a good one. There's some veterans to the program. We've got Geneve Newcombe, who's in Nova Scotia. Tyler Lester is in Ontario. Riley Anderson is in Morris, Manitoba. And Shane Strydhorst is in Alberta. We're also going to be joined by area agronomist for Western Manitoba for Pioneer. It is Derwyn Hammond will be on the show today as well. If you have any feedback on today's show, send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. Or, of course, you can find us across all the different social media platforms, where you're more than welcome to call the RealAg feedback line. The number is 855-776-6147. Keep that feedback coming as it pertains to anything that we discuss here on the program. We want to hear from you. We've been talking about the Canadian Farmer Sentiment Index information. We talked yesterday about the markets with Neil Townsend. We've been looking at the weather, and we've been talking about the financial realities of what's in front of us here in the 24 growing season. And I love your perspectives, whether it's the ones that are the most pessimistic or the ones that are the most optimistic or anything in between. Want you to be a part of the discussion here and provide me with your thoughts on how all of this is impacting your operation and the industry in general. Let's take a break, and when we come back, we're going to get started with the Farmer Rapid Fire. You're listening to RealAg Radio, brought to you today by Pioneer Seeds Canada.
Want a product that will give you nitrogen all season long? Then you want to try Envita. Envita gets directly into the cells of the plants, and it's easy to apply, foliar or in furrow. Envita provides the flexibility you need for your farm practices. Whether you want to reduce your nitrogen and maintain yield, or maintain your nitrogen and increase yield, Envita fits your farm. Envita SC formulation is OMRI registered. To learn more about Envita, visit azotic.com. That's AZOTIC.com.
The Canola School on RealAgriculture.com is your one-stop shop for everything a canola grower needs. Check out our free video series on YouTube for all the latest in canola agronomy, research, marketing, and more. Don't have time to watch? Download the podcast version of the Canola School on RealAgriculture.com or anywhere you download your podcasts. Stay on top of all things canola with the Canola School on RealAgriculture.com, brought to you by BASF and Invigor Hybrid Canola.
FP Genetics relentlessly brings innovative new seed genetics to Canadian farms, ensuring growers, breeders, and farmers are supported and viable. Being a valued partner on your farm for decades, you can expect the continuous pursuit of the best genetics. Visit fpgenetics.ca to discover FP's strong portfolio of wheat, durum, barley, oats, peas, and rye, or contact your local FP seed dealer or territory manager to discuss your certified seed strategy specific to your region.
Begin the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada in Port Williams in the Annapolis Valley in Nova Scotia. We're talking to Genevieve Newcombe. Genevieve, how's it going?
It's good. Cold, but good.
Yeah? Okay, so what is the temperature this week in Nova Scotia?
It's just -3, but it feels brisker today.
Yeah.
It feels a little colder than that, yeah.
Cold air. And are you still getting a lot of moisture?
We had a fair bit of snow last week, but right now it's staying pretty quiet. Starting to see a little of the grass peek up through, so it's not a heavy snow around.
Okay. So what's happened on the farm this week?
Well, this week we've been shipping chickens, and we're getting ready. We're having an open house here next Tuesday, so we're starting the plans for that.
Okay, so talk a little bit more about this open house. What are you trying to accomplish? What does it look like? What are you doing?
Okay, we this past summer put in an expeller to make our own soybean oil. So it's up and running now. So that's what the open house is. It's to showcase this new expeller and how we're becoming more self-sufficient here.
Yeah. So was that the main thrust for doing it, was becoming your own processor, or what made you get into that business?
Well, we found our source of oil, because we have an on-farm feed mill. We've been making our own feed for over 20 years. And most of the grains we grow, but we always brought in oil and bought soybean meal as well. And the last few years, the oil's been harder and harder to source. So we decided we should start trying to make our own. So that's kind of, what did it. And we think it's, more efficient too, because there's, about 30 to 40 less trucks making trips to our farm now that deliver soybean meal or oil.
Wow. Well, this would be a big undertaking. One, the capital investment, but two, trying to educate yourself on how to to do this properly, right?
That's correct, yeah.
So
it didn't happen overnight. It's been in the works for a couple of years. First we wanted to try soybean oil and made sure it would work in our rations. So we found a source for that and tried it for a year and then decided to make the investment.
So where does one go to learn how to properly run this, processing facility? Did you find somebody that used to do it for a larger company and hire them, or is there textbooks out there? How did you do this?
How did we do this? Well, I guess first with some online reading, and then we'd had a soybean extruder before. We had been extruding our own soybeans for a while. So a company we worked with in the States for that, we dealt with them to buy this expeller. And when we had all the equipment on site and ready to go, they sent their technician up for a few days to get us started and give us the rest of the training we needed.
So you mentioned you're shipping chickens. How's the poultry business been?
Been pretty good lately. Yeah, we're no complaints.
Yeah. So
yeah,
from a winter aspect, what are some of the hurdles or the things that you go through during the winter months when in your poultry operation? For some of us, just allow us to better understand it for those of us that aren't in the poultry industry.
Okay. I guess it wasn't as much the hurdles, but there's definitely more expense in heating your barn, because when those baby chicks come in, they want that barn to be 30, 31 degrees. So the propane trucks and oil trucks frequent us quite often. So there's a bigger cost in the winter for that. And I guess the other big thing is just making sure, we've had some poor weather, that things are cleared, and there's, that safety component for when they come in to catch those birds, that, there's no ice or snow or anything to cause issues for the catching crew that comes in.
Yeah, and a lot of attention is being paid to the heating of those barns on that Bill C-234. Where do you stand on that one and trying to push for an exemption?
I would love it as I put in the propane bills today, and it's about a 14% extra cost on every bill, so that really adds up. And then there's tax on top of that. So, but yeah, 14% just off the top is about what it runs. So it's a huge cost.
Yeah, and maybe there's some accountant out there that can explain it to me, but it's the tax on the tax that I don't understand why there's GST on top of the carbon tax you're already paying. 14%, that does add up. That's substantial.
Yeah, it's I was going to say thousands and thousands. I mean, we're talking, 50, 100,000 a year or better.
Yeah,
that it's going to cost. So it's a huge cost.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure when you go to poultry meetings, that's a big topic. I'm just speculating there, but I would imagine it is.
Well, the annual meetings all start off in March, so I'm sure that's when we'll start hearing about it.
Yeah.
or hearing those discussions. But yeah, no, like I said, it's huge, and I know they're supposedly the politicians are working on it, but it is a huge cost, and unfortunately, those costs have to be passed on. Right,
and in the supply management system for poultry, those costs do get passed on, right? And that's an example of where it does cost the consumer more.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely.
Has there been any impacts of avian influenza in Nova Scotia at all?
We had one case here 2 years ago. Fortunately, not on our farm, but we were in the control zone. So that presented some challenges and some learning opportunities. So we're hopeful it doesn't strike back here again. But you just don't know, and it's more, unfortunately, probably when is it going to come again as to if it's going to come again. But
right,
everybody has good biosecurity, and you try to stay on top of it. But sometimes things happen, and you just don't know why.
Are there things you're doing today biosecurity-wise that say you weren't 5 or 10 years ago?
Not us. We've always had a strong biosecurity program here. We've always, changed our footwear between every barn and changed clothes and kept doors locked. It's always been quite strong here. So we haven't had to change that any, but it's just reminding everyone to, continue to adhere to it and don't get lax.
Yeah, that don't become complacent. Don't drop your guard. Those kinds of things for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure there's been a time or two when somebody's gone in a barn at night that, it's just, I'm in a hurry. I won't change my shoes this time. Hopefully they don't do that, but that's always a possibility. But like I said, most of our guys here, we've got some great employees that have been with us a long time, so we have a lot of faith when they're doing things, they're following all our protocols as well.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Are you all ready for the 2024 growing season?
We're getting there. The plans are getting in place for what gets grown in each field, and what cover crops we're going to use this year and that sort of thing. So things are getting lined up.
Yeah. So what's in the rotation? What are you growing?
We grow corn, soybeans, winter wheat, and we have dairy as well. So we have some pasture and hayland with that as well.
Yeah. And you mentioned cover crops. What are you doing with cover crops?
That's a better question for my brother-in-law. He does most of that. But he's very much into the cover crops and does, lots of different mixes. And, I know sometimes we've had the odd sunflower out here that's mixed in with it and some radish things. And he'd be the man to talk to about that. But I know he does a great job and, very conscious that we take good care of our soil so we can take care of us.
Yeah. Well put. Well, Genevieve, thanks so much for joining us here today on the Farmer Rapid Fire. Thanks so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
And we'll be right back on RealAg Radio and the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada.
Co-op knows your community because we live here too. Our teams are your trusted partners with a range of expertise to help support your entire farm operation. And we're giving back. In the past 5 years, Co-op has invested over $1.1 billion in the prairies, through building, upgrading, and expanding local facilities. And we've returned over $1.17 billion to co-op members in the prairies. Co-op, we're all building something for the future. Here for your farm, here for your family. Learn more at coop.crs/farm.
Whether you're a rookie soybean grower or a seasoned vet, the Soybean School on RealAgriculture.com has exactly what you need to stay in the game. The latest research and the best agronomic advice from industry experts, along with local and global market coverage on demand, anywhere, anytime. Make this growing season your best growing season with the Soybean School on RealAgriculture.com.
Co-op AgZone Field is a digital agronomy tool designed to help optimize your operation. Through integrated layers of satellite imagery, soil maps, yield data, and more, Co-op Grow Team members use AgZone Field to provide organized, timely, in-season data, allowing you to make informed management decisions quickly and effectively. Trust your Co-op Grow Team to support your operation with AgZone Field. Contact your local co-op today.
Farmer Rapid Fire brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada to Bloomfield, Ontario. And we're talking to Tyler Lester. Hey, Tyler, how are you doing today?
Good, Sean.
Okay, what's happened on the farm this week? What are you up to?
Oh, fixing, and more fixing.
Oh. Oh. Now, what are we trying to fix?
We're rebuilding the seed drill, so it's ready to go. We've got a truck completely disassembled. The motor's out, the cab is off, the box is off. We're cleaning the frame and cleaning the floor of the cab, and just a basic, simple restoration, we'll call it.
Yeah. Are these
simple?
Simple?
Simple as in the truck is disassembled.
Is this one of those where it's like, oh, shoot, we took it all apart, now we got to put it all back together? This is, do we really want to do this, or has this been in the plans for a long time, or what's going on?
I don't like any of the new trucks, so we're restoring some of the old stuff. I know how to fix it, so I'm going to keep fixing it.
Yeah, hey, I don't think you're alone. I think there's lots. What year is this truck?
It's a 2002.
Yeah.
So it does have some electronics on it, but not so many that I don't know how to deal with it.
See, I don't have to worry about any of this because I can't fix anything. So 2002, 2022, it really doesn't matter to me. I have to get somebody else to do it. But I think there's a lot of farms that are kind of in this boat. That you're not the first person that said this to me. You're kind of you know what you can fix, and you're also keeping some costs under control too, right?
Trying to.
Yeah. Speaking of costs under control, how's the crop plan coming ahead here?
I try not to think about it. My grandfather told me that as a farmer, you are a born gambler, and you bury all of your money in the ground and bet on green every year. And I've quit asking the question. I just accept that that's what I am and carry on with life.
but there's also, I like that. You're a bet on green. But there's also educated gambles inside of that broader metaphor.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
That allow you to either, maybe change some of the probabilities on the outcomes and things like that. But it's definitely not penciling out like it did prior years, right? This is a kind of a new adjustment for something we haven't had to do for a little bit. Yes.
They on a global scale, they seem to have accepted that the war in Ukraine is at least on par with the rest of the world, and supplies haven't been affected to the degree that they initially the market suggested they could be, and our market price is showing signs of softening due to that, and doesn't show any significant signs of jumping back up to 2 years ago levels. So I think personal thoughts are my belt's going to be a little tighter this spring and fall than it was.
Yeah. So what gets impacted first as you're tightening that belt? What are you doing differently this year versus last year or the year before?
Oh, we're rebuilding more equipment and not looking at replacing machinery. We've added a used combine instead of replacing, updating to a new combine. We're going to try 2 used ones instead of one new one, and things like that.
Agronomically, so none of those, like, I think, again, if you look at some of the deal flow in the equipment space, I think what you're thinking is what a lot of people are thinking. Do you make any changes agronomically, or you're going to chase yield like you did in prior years? Does the management change at all?
Not on my operation. I like to think that my pencil's as sharp as needs be, and I don't think that, cutting back on fertilizer is my best option. I don't think that cutting back on a herbicide application is my best option. Yield potential is still where my money is.
Yeah. Well, you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot either, right?
No, that's exactly it. If everything else is tight, getting less yield isn't going to help me at all. I'm a cash crop farmer.
Yeah.
It's all based on my yield.
Corn, beans, and wheat is the rotation, or what else you got?
We're corn, beans, and wheat. Trying to come up with some other ideas, forages. I've got a couple of neighbors who are one's a sheep farmer and one's a beef farmer, and we're working on an idea to maybe pasture some of my land with cover crops. But it's in the idea phase.
Yeah. I was reading, it was somebody's LinkedIn post, and they were talking about this. One of the things we're going to see more of is exactly what you just talked about, which was increased cooperation amongst farmers and neighbors. I didn't really think of it until you just gave me the example, but it is sort of, and a lot of farms have been doing this for a long time, but for some, this is something that was more common years ago, right?
Yes.
I don't know if it fell out of favor or why. I'm not sure what exactly happened, but the person in this post was talking about how this is one of the things we're going to see more of at this time. It's interesting that you bring up this example.
Okay, well, hey, everything old is new again.
That's true. Just we're not getting any younger. That's the problem.
No, and that's just it. And on my operation, there's only one of me.
Yeah. And
I can only do so many things. I'm a bit of a gearhead, so I have a couple of tractors and a seed drill and a corn planter and a combine. And it's not that I don't like animals, but I'm not an animal person. So if I want animals, I've got to find somebody to work with that is an animal person.
Yeah.
If it's my neighbor, so much the better. It's easy to get to his house. It's right there.
As a one-man band operator, I would think as you hunker down on costs like you've described, it's kind of easier to do as a one-man band, is it not?
Oh, I don't know if I would say yes or no to that.
Okay.
I don't think I would say that it's easier. maybe insofar as I have only myself to blame for any of the mistakes that are made.
Oh yeah. Oh well, there's plenty of mistakes to go around. I don't know about your shop, but I just I just think about myself, and there's lots of blame to go around. For sure. Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
The woulda, coulda, shoulda on so many different examples. But hey, that's farming, right?
Absolutely.
Hey, before I let you go, I just wanted to touch base. Have you made sense of kind of some of this market? We talked about some of the costs and things like that, but other part of that margin is what we sell stuff for. This market's really been brutal to us.
I have to do a better job of paying attention to the market. Very simple. I saw my elevator operator, the lady that I deal with regularly, in the fall said, "Is there any chance that you'd sell a good chunk of your corn right now? I think that price is going to go down." And I made the mistake of not selling all of my corn. And I'm still sitting on all of my corn, and the price has dropped $50 or more since then. So I'm going to have to do a better job of paying attention. I don't feel like I'm doing as good a job as I could or should do.
Well, it's not easy. It is not easy. That is for sure. Well, hey, Tyler, thanks so much for joining us here today on the Farmer Rapid Fire. All the best, team. We'll chat with you again soon, okay?
That sounds good, Shaun. All the best. Thank you.
We've got more of the Farmer Rapid Fire coming up here on RealAg Radio, Rural Radio 147, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada.
CDC Endure is a new oat line from Alliance Seed. High yielding with excellent disease resistance and the quality end users ask for, all in one great oat variety. CDC Endure provides the high beta-glucan levels to make heart-healthy products like breakfast cereals. For more information on CDC Endure oats, as well as any other products from Alliance Seed, check out allianceseed.com or visit any Alliance Seed authorized retailers. Does your end stabilizer contain an active ingredient load high enough to be agronomically effective? If not, it could be costing you time and money. If you're putting down a nitrogen stabilizer, put your trust in Koch Agronomic Services. Solutions like Super U, Tribune, and Anvil. Each delivers high active ingredient concentrations that low-rate products just can't match. Compare how imitator products stack up to agronomically effective solutions at defendyourn.ca.
And we take the Farmer Rapid Fire into Morris, Manitoba. We're talking to Riley Anderson. Hey, Riley, how's it going?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Wow, I'm doing decent. It's hard to believe it's already mid-February, or we're actually past the midway point. We're already talking about March, not too far away. It's hard to believe. Time is flying.
Yeah,
we're getting closer and closer to seeding and planting all the time, and it looks like it's going to happen a little earlier than maybe we'd like, based on some of the conditions.
Yeah, this whole winter has felt like March out where we are, except for a week. So it's been a nice, easy winter.
No kidding. Not your typical Canadian stereotypical winter that we would joke about, and all those kinds of things. It hasn't been a good year for skiing, that's for sure, or snowmobiling.
That's correct.
Yeah. Hey, what's happening on the farm this week?
I'm actually down at Ag PhD puts on a Neil Kinsey soils clinic. Every winter. So I came down here for 3 days, so just on the tail end of it now.
What are we learning? What's the big takeaway?
Oh, I need to get my soils in better shape. I need to focus more on calcium and magnesium than I normally do.
Yeah? Okay, so and what's the why of that? What does it lead to?
So I have high calcium, high magnesium soils where I am. And when your magnesium is too high, it ties up the nutrients from getting into the plant and makes your soil tight and not have the same water infiltrate. Oh, I screwed that word up. It doesn't help water infiltrate that easy. So
don't worry, dude. I'm not science, not my thing. It's all
Me neither.
It's all good. Good crowd for the clinic.
Yeah, there's a pretty decent crowd in person, and then they also have an online stream here that's going as well. So.
Oh, good. And I would imagine people from pretty vast geography as well.
Yeah, most of the United States are represented, and then I know there's a couple Canadian provinces represented here as well. So.
Oh, good stuff. Have you done this one before?
Yeah, this will be my 4th or 5th year doing it. So
oh, wow.
If there was one soil fertility course I would not give up, I think it'd be this one.
Okay, good. That's good stuff. Appreciate you sharing some of that with us. How's the crop plan looking for the upcoming year?
It is, well, we have plan C down, but it's subject to change right up until end of March, beginning of April, I think.
Any big fluctuations in the crop plan at all? Like what you're going to do? Like a lot of people are like the one that everyone's kind of I think really wondering is how much will canola acres be down? Are they going to be down on your farm?
They will be 0 on my farm if the markets stay where they're at.
0.
I just can't make canola pay at these prices with the yields we get on our farm.
So, from a percentage standpoint, where would canola typically be in the rotation?
It would be a 10 to 25% crop, percent of acres.
So what goes in instead?
Our soybean acres will be up a little bit, and then also our corn acres will be up.
Okay, so those are penciling out better.
Yeah, they at least have a somewhat of a positive ROI right now.
Yeah, definitely. I think across North America, I think all the talk. I imagine the clinic you're at on coffee breaks, everyone's just talking about the shrinking of the margin. Is that true?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, no, it's how do we make more with less? That's been the big conversation.
Yeah. Any other big changes on the farm here this coming year?
Nothing too major. We just made a big dryer acquisition here 2 years ago, so we're gonna try and get that thing tuned in and figure it out a little bit more, and yeah, just try and keep our heads above water and pay down some debt that we've accrued over the last number of years. How's
that dryer been working?
It works phenomenal. If anybody's looking at putting in a dryer, I highly suggest it. It has changed our farm in the 2 years we've run it now. I would say that it has lessened the need or the stress on the combines just because we can combine a little bit later every day and start a little bit earlier every morning.
Yeah, definitely added flexibility. And how many people does it take to run it? Just is it a one person job?
In wheat, I would say it's 0.5 of a person. In corn, it's a one person thing, just because conditions around drying corn season, the stuff ices up when it gets below 0 and stuff like that. But when conditions are good, you can monitor it from your phone, and I drive truck and run the dryer at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I routinely hear that from farmers that go from, no dryer to having an on-farm dryer, and they always talk about the added flexibility I don't know why we did this the way that we did prior to having this dryer.
Yep. The one guy I talked to, he said, he goes, you can go buy another $1 million combine and combine the same amount of acres per day. But when the grain's tough, both your combines are parked. You can still run your dryer and still get something done.
You probably pay a little bit closer attention to gas prices now too.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. And wanting that exemption on the carbon tax on farm grain dryers too, I bet.
Yeah, that's been that's a fight that we need to push over the goal line.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned tighten your belt and pay down some debt. Any equipment? I'm assuming no equipment purchases then for this
no
season.
None for this year. We didn't. We were in the drought area pretty bad in my region, so we we're starting in a bit of a hole this year, so we have some climbing to do to get out of it.
What's the moisture situation for this upcoming year right now?
I'm probably more positive than most of my neighbors are, but we're dry. But looking at the soil probes in the government weather stations and then also some of the private ones around, it looks better than most people say it is, but we're still going to need some rains in spring to get the crop going.
Yeah, what we really need is the market to turn around. That is really sucked sewer. It is like, terrible.
Yep. Well, and the most of what I've heard is we got to yield our way out of this. Well, we yield our way out of this for just putting more grain in the marketplace, which is just going to push the prices down more.
Meaning, like, we need to yield our way out of it. Like, we need to grow more. So
we have to get higher yields to become profitable. We have a glut of grain in the world, so that's only going to depress prices more if there's more grain added to the world market.
That's great if you're the only farm doing that. Everybody else around you is not. Yeah.
We need a world disaster on the other side of the continent or something.
So, some people are listening to the RealAg Radio podcast now in Australia. Like, you know what? Listen here, Riley. You stick it, dude. What are you talking about? Other side of the world.
They had their turn a couple years. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. I know. Yeah. Are you looking forward to the growing season ahead?
Oh yes. Oh yeah. No, I was born to farm. There's I joke around. I'd almost do it for free if nobody paid me to do it. So I'm looking forward, and I have optimism in the markets.
Good.
This whole thing, it becomes a weather market, and with the managed money in the markets, they get a different sniff of something and the price go up $2 again, just like it did 2-3 years ago when there was a war that started. So I'd rather not have another war start, but it could be anything. It could be a drought in Chicago specifically, and then all of a sudden the corn price goes up.
Yeah, got to be optimistic. That is right, my friend. That is right. Well, hey, Riley, I'll let you get back to the clinic. Thanks so much for joining us here today. All the best to you, and we'll talk to you as soon as we get some seed in the ground, okay?
Yeah, thank you. Have a good day.
We still got 2 more stops on the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada. We'll be right back right after this.
What's next for your fields? At Pioneer, delivering industry-leading genetics drives everything we do. From the scientists in the lab to our local teams with boots on the ground, we are determined to get there first. Developing top-performing products, proven in more growing conditions than ever before. Pioneer. What's next happens here. Visit pioneer.com/Canada to learn more.
Get all the information you need to keep your pulse crop healthy and profitable with the Pulse School on RealAgriculture.com. The Pulse School is a free YouTube video series covering agronomy, research, and more across a host of different pulse crops. It's also available as an audio podcast wherever you download or stream your favorite podcast. Check us out on YouTube or visit RealAgriculture.com. The Pulse School, brought to you by BSF Canada. And we take the Farmer Rapid Fire into Neerlandia, Alberta, and we're talking to Shane Strydhorst. Hey, Shane, how are you doing today?
Not too bad. How are you doing, Shaun?
Well, I'm doing pretty good. What's happened on the farm here this week?
Oh, busy hauling grain here this week again. Probably do a little bit of maintenance on some seeding equipment that I have in the shop, getting ready for Plant 24, which is coming up pretty quickly.
No kidding. Do you expect that you will get started normal time, a little bit earlier, or a lot earlier than normal?
I'd say probably a little bit earlier than normal. We have pretty light snowpack this winter, so unless we get a whole bunch of snow in April, which has happened before, it probably should melt down and be dry enough to get in the fields a little bit earlier than normal. Kind of looking at that last week of April, but yeah, I never like to get in the field too quick because we do get a lot of frosts in April and May, and I would hate to seed crops and then have to reseed them. So yeah, we'll be in the field a little ahead of schedule, and we do have some moisture in this part of the world, but I know there's a lot of people that don't have that right now.
Yeah, there's a large part of the prairies that, people saying, geez, we're a little short. And some, drought is always, everybody has their own context of drought, right? Drought for you in Neerlandia is different than drought in foremost Alberta. But it's all relative, right? And it's good to hear that you've got some decent moisture. Well, I don't know what word I should put to it, but you're not in dire straits. You're going to get the crop out of the ground, and it's what Mother Nature does after that that's going to be really, really important, I think, for many, many, many of us.
Exactly. I mean, last year we were kind of in that little blessed region where we had enough rain, and in some areas actually a little bit too much. So we had a crop last year and have water in the ground. So we are not in a dire situation going into the spring, but certainly we will need those rains after the crop is in the ground to sustain it once it comes up.
Yeah. What are you doing for your crop mix? Any changes?
Fairly standard for the rotation for us. I think we have a little bit more faba beans this year, just as the rotation works out, and some spring wheat, some barley, and some canola. So more or less sticking with the rotation we've got going.
Okay. Now, I asked one of the farmers earlier about canola acres because that's the one. We've seen price declines across many of the commodities, but that's the one that I'm hearing at least talk of. Yeah, I'm backing off. And it was Riley Anderson earlier he's in the Red River Valley around Morris, Manitoba. They're going to canola. They're going to 0 acres, which that is pretty significant, especially when you're growing 20% of your rotation is canola. What are you hearing from your neighbors? Are you hearing about cutbacks in acres?
I think there's a lot of people where I am that they have a wheat canola rotation. There's a little bit more barley sneaking in the last couple of years. It's become more profitable than it had been for a while, and maybe a little bit of a cutback of canola, but not a whole bunch. I guess, for me, a lot of people think that canola is the real moneymaker on the farm, and it can be, but I mean, we've had great success some years. In the last 5 years, we've had probably 2 years that faba beans were the most profitable, and a year or two where barley was the most profitable. It just depends how the markets go and just how that particular crop grows in a given year. So, I mean, this past year, canola looked great, and then the market fell apart here over the winter, and now we're sitting on a bunch of canola that, we've sold most of it, but now we have some that wish we'd sold it all in October, of course.
What's the main market for the faba beans you're growing? It sounds like it's becoming a more important part of the rotation. How do you market in them?
Historically, they've gone a lot of them for feed, local feed mills, local hog farm. But this year, we actually sold most of them. Had a good offer from AGT, and they're actually being exported to Egypt this year. And we have explored that market before, and that's where they're going this year. And I guess we'll see what happens in 2024. Hopefully there's a little bit more, domestic processing gets online, and that'll become a more viable option for us this year.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, because I always thought they were mainly used in the domestic feed market. So that's really interesting to see that we've kind of diversifying the use where we are exporting them as well. When we're doing these farmer rapid fires, I hear more and more growers saying they've got some acres of faba beans. It's not to like the pea or lentil acreage or anything, but it's definitely been growing in interest for sure. You said you're fixing some stuff up in the shop. What are you working on?
Right now I've got the seeding tool in the shop. I just got a new set of seeding discs this winter. It's time to put a set of new discs on there. They don't last forever, and I try to do a little bit of this, a little bit of that every year, just to keep the current. If you do a set of discs this year, maybe next year will be some bushings and pins and that kind of thing. But just try to keep it in good shape because iron isn't getting any cheaper. So for the most part, we'll try to keep what we have in good shape and keep it working well.
I think that's a common theme, Shane. I'm like because of how equipment prices used for sure and also new have gone up over the past number of years. And now we're in a situation where margins have tightened. The market's fallen off from a commodity standpoint. I'm hearing more and more from the growers on this show that they're fixing what they have. That seems to be a bit of a common thread here, I would say, in 24.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe it seems like maybe we've hit a bit of a plateau in new prices, but of course, yeah, it's not going to drop overnight. So if things do drop eventually, I guess that'll help with decisions for upgrading. But yeah, in the meantime, and it's not cheap to maintain the stuff we have either. Parts are expensive and in some cases difficult to get. But yeah, we'll keep going with what we have for now, and yeah, hopefully the commodity prices that we're selling will turn around here. And I mean, fertilizer certainly was a lot cheaper this year. We made some good decisions buying fertilizer, so that's, I guess, a plus. And it's going to be a little bit cheaper crop to put in than the last year or two.
You know, I've been talking about our Canadian Farmer Sentiment Index here over the past couple weeks, the results for January, and overall farmers, you know, definitely pessimistic about the year ahead. How are you feeling about the year ahead when you look at your crop budgets, your operation, and just what's in front of you?
I guess I like to think I'm a fairly positive person. Maybe I'm optimistic, maybe too optimistic sometimes. Just like whenever there's a down day in the markets, my sentiment is it's going to go up, and it doesn't always do that. But no, I guess I'm optimistic that it'll work out okay this year. We of course take out crop insurance for if we have a wreck, and we'll do the best we can with the knowledge we have going into the crop season, and diversify. Have a fairly diverse set of crops that if one doesn't work out, hopefully one of the other ones or a couple of the other ones will, and hopefully that the markets are there at the end of the day when we have the crop in the bin. Great stuff.
Yeah, I like the optimism. Like, I know sometimes we give some of those results out. People are like, oh, why are you being so negative? Well, I'm not being negative. It's the farmers saying it's not I'm not answering the questions. But I think you can do a little bit of both, right? It's like that being realistic. Because I'm like you. If you do a disc profile, I'm an I, right? I'm an idea person. I'm and I can get caught up in it too. So I always need somebody to sort of like, no, here's like, let's be realistic. And I think, that's kind of the way that you have to be optimistic. Because if you are totally negative, boy, it's tough to get up in the morning. This is a hard industry to be really down on, right?
Yeah, if I was going to be pessimistic about it, it would be kind of hard to get up and say, let's go do this thing. Let's plant a crop. And if I was really that pessimistic about it, I'd probably want to get out. But no, I enjoy what I do, and I'm optimistic that it's gonna work out again. So we're gonna give it our best shot again this year.
Yeah, and no two crops are the same, right? Like, how many crops have you put in your career?
I've been doing this, about 25 years now, plus, of course, the time working with my dad and my uncle on the farm growing up. But about 25 years of my own thing now. Yeah. And no two crops are the same, right? I mean, we had some real tough years in the late teens where we had so much moisture that we were getting, some single digit and, 15 bushel canola crops. And it was kind of discouraging there for a couple of years. And then things turn around. We get a couple of drier years and a couple of good crops, and then it makes the guy excited, more excited again to get up and do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Shane, I really appreciate you joining us here today on the Farmer Rapid Fire. All the best to you during seeding season, and we'll talk to you when we get some crop out of the ground, okay?
Great. Thanks, Shaun.
And we finish up this week's Farmer Rapid Fire like we always do with the sponsor, Pioneer Seeds Canada. And today we're joined by area agronomist for Western Manitoba, Derwyn Hammond. Hey, Derwyn, how's it going?
Oh, that's going great. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, great to chat with you again. Okay, so we've heard from our farmers on today's show. Definitely a lot of talk about, whether it's drought or it's the decline in the markets, there's some belt tightening being talked about. And I don't know if everyone's been working out needs to tighten their belt. I think it's about financial belts. Is that kind of what you've been hearing a lot from your customers?
Yeah, certainly lots of focus. In this area, crops turned out to be, I would say, overall average. We had some late season moisture that helped us out, especially on some of the longer season crops like the corn and soybeans and some of the later canola crops. But certainly on the dry side, not a lot of snow. And I know as you move west of here, much more drought-like conditions last summer, leading a lot of guys to be a bit pessimistic around yields. And then, the slide in the overall commodity price is definitely something lots of guys are talking about as they try to plan for this year.
We got to be careful, though, right? Like, I've been speaking to audiences all over Canada and the U.S. the past couple months, it's fine to be aware of the economic realities and tighter margins and, adverse weather conditions, but we got to be careful the decisions we're making don't put us actually further behind the 8 ball. And I think about that from an agronomic perspective, right? Maybe, making the, cheaper genetic decision, or thinking about from a nutrient package, really, because it's easy to fall into this, like, it's going to be a terrible year. And you start to make decisions that put yourself really behind that 8 ball.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, as we see some consolidation, larger farms, right, there's that tendency to want to keep things simple. And then with that price pressure to kind of back off on our investment in those crops. And then from a crop selection standpoint, right, to try and pick what's going to be the winner and deploy it over most of those acres. And research and experience has taught us that diversity can be our friend, and those cropping mixes help us manage that risk. We often think of the agronomic benefits of that, right? And the obvious one is, things like disease, right? Blackleg and clubroot in canola, Goss's wilt in corn, Fusarium head blight and leaf disease in our cereal crops. We know that a break between those host crops helps that inoculum become less viable and creates less risk for that next time we grow that crop. And so we think of the agronomic benefits, but unless you're fantastic at predicting the price trend on every crop in your cropping mix, having a diverse mix on that farm is another risk management tool, and you kind of need to look at it that way.
When you're talking to customers about, that crop plan, you and I were talking during the commercial break about still planning for like that average yield, even when we're in drought conditions, because if we don't, even though, we have had a significant drought bias in some of the areas of Western Canada, indeed, still planning for that average or trend line yield, because it's a trend line yield for a reason. It's because that's where we typically would end up given appropriate conditions come through, right? So you can always back off later in the season as opposed to trying to play catch up because of is that the right way to look at it, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that tends to be my approach and I especially think if you kind of look at the average over, say, the last 5-year average of that particular crop on your farm, you're incorporating some of the newer genetics you've been growing, but you're also, if the last couple of years have been down years, that's already built into that average a little bit. So you're already being a bit more conservative to begin with. And so, I think the plants need a certain level of support in terms of their plant health, right? Plants that are suffering stress from nutrient deficiencies aren't going to handle drought stress. They're not going to handle pressure from weed competition or insects or pathogens as well, right? If they can go into that situation healthy to start with, it generally helps the final outcome in the end. So, I think where I tend to look for more efficiencies is things like our fertility program, right? If you're looking at cutting back, making sure you're keeping a good balance, and that's a balance of nutrients available to the plant, whether it's coming from the fertilizer, it's coming from the soil. So, I always harp on soil testing, but a year like this, where you're coming out of maybe some abnormal growing conditions, sometimes those residual levels will surprise you, and it can be an opportunity, right? If you shot for an average to above average crop last year and didn't get it because of the drought conditions, something else limited that yield, there's potential for there to be some good residual levels in that soil. So then that becomes an opportunity to not hurt your crop, but save some money. So it's, the investment in something like a well-done soil test relative to the expense of the input itself is pretty small, and it can really pay off in a year like this.
Well, hey, Derwyn, thanks so much for joining us. Really, really appreciate it. Have yourself a great spring, and we'll talk to you once the crop gets in the ground.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot.
If you have any feedback on today's show, we'd love to hear from you. Send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. Or, of course, you can call the RealAg feedback line, 855-776-6147. Thanks, everybody, for getting real and getting connected with RealAg Radio, brought to you today by Pioneer Seeds Canada. And we'll chat again tomorrow. Cheers, everybody.
Thank you for downloading this RealAg Radio podcast, brought to you by Authority Strike Herbicide from FMC. Strike twice with 2 Group 14 modes of action and take care of the toughest broadleaf weeds, including kochia, cleavers, Russian thistle, and pigweed. See your local retailer today for more information.